This call is being
Okay, sounds good.
recorded.
Yeah, that was a good interview we were doing earlier.
Yeah, it was very interesting to talk to someone else who's heard the voices. Because that's like my number one complaint about this whole thing is those voices drive me crazy. And unfortunately, that's the one thing you haven't experienced. So it was nice to kind of get a little bit more insight on that, even though she doesn't hear them 24/7 like I do. And I didn't know that
Right.
either. I didn't know that people sometimes don't hear them because I haven't came across that yet. They talk to me. They were talking to me the whole time I'm talking to you during that whole conference, telling me like, "Oh, they're lying to you. They're in on it. That's a lie. That happened this year, not that year. All kinds of stuff."
Mhm. Yeah, it's like it sounds demonic, the whole thing. Even though technology is being used and there's people behind it, it's still a demonic type of interaction.
Whenever it first started happening, I was like seriously wondering who I pissed off enough to stalk me and who would have the resources and the money out of people that I knew to surveillance me 24/7 and to come up with the stuff that they say to me. It's like kind of like I'm live on air the whole time with these voices. And it's a two-way communication because like I was telling you guys during the last interview that I used to like I thought for a while that they were just a different part of my psyche and I was just going nuts. So I'd sit there and sit up all night just talking with them. Like I'd be sitting there, sitting upright in bed, just chatting away with them as they just like tormented me.
Yeah, yeah. I've talked to people who said the same thing. Like as soon as they wake up, they start hearing the voices, and it goes on throughout the whole day. You
Oh,
know.
thank goodness I'm not the only one there.
Yeah. Oh no, there's a lot of people. I mean, I think like half the people I've spoken to have had the voice to skull stuff.
Yeah, that's the one thing I do want to ask other people is like if the voices ever have a sense of humor and stuff like that too, because sometimes they're funny motherfuckers. I mean, they're assholes, but sometimes they do crack me up.
What do you mean? They like tell like they say like strange stuff or tell you jokes and stuff?
Yeah, they will tell me jokes or like something that like only me and them know, like kind of like an inside joke type thing. Like, okay, when I got out of rehab, I didn't have a car, I didn't have a phone, I didn't have anything, right? And so I'm like on these long walks from like the bus stop to like say my job interview, right? And I'm walking along the side of the road, and my shadow pops up, and I'm kind of just like bopping down the street. My shadow's kind of bopping, and then all of a sudden I hear like a group of people start singing Buffalo Soldier in the arms of America,
Hmm.
which is humorous to me because my shadow is sitting there bopping with me. So every now and then they'll do something like that that's straight up funny, or they're like, or I kind of have a sick sense of humor, so they'll bring up something embarrassing that they've seen happen to me, and they'll make a joke about it that I shouldn't be laughing at, but it's hilarious.
Hmm.
Kind of like making fun of myself type thing.
Yeah, yeah. I've heard people say some stuff like that, like like they would be hearing voices, the voice to skull technology, and be asking them questions or telling them certain sorts of things, and like a lot of it would be humorous or it would be hostile. Like they said, sometimes it'd be real hostile, and um, but it almost seems like there's like a constant dialogue, like there's a conversation going back and forth, like repeatedly. Like, can you answer them back?
Yeah, I think it's like kind of similar to like these conference calls. Like what I picture in my mind is literally 24/7. There's this room, and people switch shifts or whatever to surveillance or to talk to me like 24 hours a day. And sometimes like this time of night, it's usually just one person, right? Unless I've been
Mhm.
like a pain in the ass for the day or something, they feel like, oh, it's time to give her some like night troubles and not have her sleep tonight or whatever. But yeah, like there'll be like one person, and then like I picture three people entering the room at say 8 a.m. Three more people come in, that guy leaves, and it's like a set of like three people imitating like voices that I know. So these voices in my head, like I've identified who each of them are in my life because they impersonate people I know. There's not a voice up there. They even impersonate my own voice sometimes, which freaked me out the first time I heard it. But yeah, it's just like a constant dialogue where I think people just go in and out of this room, and sometimes there's multiple people, sometimes there's only one person, just doing a constant dialogue. And I'm like, where do they get the time and the resources to just sit there and come up with this stuff? Because at first they were trying to make it seem like it was my own thoughts, right? But then when I
Mhm.
started to figure out that these aren't my thoughts. This is something else, This is someone else like talking to me who just has watched me for a long period of time. Then I realized, oh my God, this is happening outside of myself, and I can't come up with this all day long, day in, day out, every waking moment of the day, sitting there trying to piss me off or stress me out. Like, there's no point in me doing that to myself, no matter what mental illness that you have.
Yeah, yeah, no kidding. No kidding. That's crazy how they said that's 24/7. What no, I'll ask you this. We were talking about like getting off the grid and all that. Have you, since you've been getting gang stalking and stuff's been happening to you, have you gone out into nature?
No, not really, not at all.
Right. See, that's what I'm all about. Is like when I say getting off the grid, I've noticed, like honestly, I've been noticing like when I go hiking or I go walking out into the woods, it's like the effects of the gang stalking stuff, all these different people following and doing the assignments and like the color coding, the brighting, all that stuff ceases to exist. And the way nature's set up, it's like a natural, all the colors are natural, and you're just walking around, it's like a real strong feeling of peace. And I've noticed that people who are further into the city seem to get affected harder by this sort of thing, whether it be electronic harassment, the group stalking with all these different people doing it. And so I've come up with a philosophy that's like makes sense. Like the further out of that you are, the less you're going to be able to get gang stalked. Like I couldn't imagine somebody living in the middle of the jungle able to really get gang stalked as we get gang stalked in the city because the environment is not right for it. You can't hire swarms of people to follow people around everywhere. If you're in a desolate area, they might be able to
I
get campers.
doubt highly that it would cease to exist, though, but I can see how it could get like greatly reduced.
That's what I mean. I meant the level of it cease to exist, but I've noticed sometimes like they would hire campers like to follow me around and stuff a little bit, but it seems
Yeah.
like the further off I go, where the further I go to where it's more uncomfortable for people to be, like in the forest, then the less people there are gonna go. Because I
I
wouldn't
wonder if
because
that's almost their intent is to push us out into those areas. You know what I mean? Because like if you're being drove crazy, you're gonna eventually start to seek out solitude. You know. So I wonder if
mhm.
that's part of their plan, or if like we've actually stumbled across like maybe possibly two places on Earth where we might not lose our sanity. I know like when you were saying you went to jail that you weren't gang stalked, and I think yours is kind of a special situation as to why you were not in there. But now you've been to two places, jail and out in nature, where there was very little, if at all, none, gang stalking going on.
Yeah, yeah, that's very interesting. That's a good point. Yeah, yeah, it wasn't happening when I was in jail, and then it wasn't happening. When I went out into nature, there would be like people, and it's not, when I say nature, it wasn't like far off. It was just like areas where there was a lot of woods and stuff. But there would be people who would do it from a distance, like cars who, if I got to an area of the woods where I could see a road or something like that, then the cars would be coming and going. But if I went to an area of the woods where there was no roads anywhere nearby, there was nothing like that, then the people, they just wouldn't be doing it. Like I've gone into places in the woods where they just didn't send the hikers in, they didn't send anybody in to do it. And so it's getting to a question of like for me, like what's really the state of living? Do I want to? How do I want to live? Do I want to live in an area there's where I have neighbors and there's people who can do gang stalking assignments every day? Like, do I really want to live like that? Or do I want to live in an area where there may not be any real gang stalking going on because there won't be any real way to network it as much? It'd become much more difficult for them to network it. And, if you're in a situation where you're camping and all that stuff, then you can just leave and go somewhere else. And so maybe the off the grid concept for people who are going through gang stalking, it might even be a nomadic type of situation to where you go to certain areas and see how it works out, and then maybe leave and go to another area, and all through the wilderness, and then and
Yeah,
then
that was exactly what I was talking to my fiance about last night, or maybe it was the night before. I was like, yeah, I was like, you know, because he was suggesting like maybe we move to this city or that city or whatever, and I was like, it's not gonna help. They'll follow us anywhere. They've already followed me here, 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 and here, right? And I was like, it almost seems to me like almost being like a fugitive on the run would be the best lifestyle at this point in time. And that's sad to say, but we're like, I don't think we'll ever completely get away from them. But that lifestyle is like the most appealing to me, like as of this moment right now. And then you were talking about, getting off the grid, and he was saying something about like there's abandoned cities like all along like the Midwest out there. And I was like, really? And he's like, yeah, there's mining cities, there's cities underground, there's all kinds of stuff out there, which I had no idea about.
you said there were cities underground.
Yeah, like I forget what they're called, like the Aztec ruins or something like that. They're in they're by the Four Corners, like Utah, Colorado, New Mexico, and Arizona. I think they're in New
Oh,
Mexico.
okay, I know what he's talking about. Yeah, yeah.
I don't
Well,
know if
you were,
those are the right ones.
yeah. Well, I'm in Michigan, and um, it's like a lot. There's water all around. It's like lakes and stuff, and but there's a lot of forest here. There's a lot of that's like there's wolves and stuff. And if you go further up north, there's like wolves and bears and stuff like that. And that to me is sort of appealing because it'd be nice because the only people who are going to be able to get out there and follow you are the people who are trained to like somebody who knows how to live that type of life. Because you can still get lost in the woods in today's
Oh
world.
yeah.
You can go up there and get lost, and you know, I mean, I look at it like, you go to an area that's real desolate, and there's wolves and bears and stuff. And say if they can come in there if they want to. I know I wouldn't want to go deep into the woods in the middle of the night to do gang stalking on somebody, especially if there's wild animals and all that stuff. And I mean, I wouldn't, like you can come in there if you want to.
Oh, I see what you're
That's
saying. There'll be a lot less people willing to do the assignments for as cheap as they can get people to do these assignments, and it's, yeah, a more populated area for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not about to go off into the middle of the woods with wolves and bears for a Walmart card
Yeah.
to stalk and harass somebody, you know? So I might feel comfortable doing it in my neighborhood where I can go outside and do it in the neighborhood setting, that feels safer. They can stalk you, drive up and down the street. That's a safe. They feel comfortable stalking people like that. But to go off into the woods and follow somebody around in the middle of the night, and there's dangerous animals and stuff like that, I mean, you know,
Yeah, it's way
if they
less appealing.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. If they want, they can come in there if they want to, you know. When, when those wolves get a hold of them, they're finished. And so that seems like more of ideal to me. And I think also the grid, the technological grid, like these people are used to networking through corporations and businesses. Like you go into a store, everybody in the store is doing it. Where there's no technological communication, cell phones and all that stuff, and where are they going to go? Where are they going to go to network it? They gotta. We're not going in. We're not going over people's houses. We only go to stores that we have to. That type of thing. How are they going? To There's no real network for it.
Yeah.
It can't
One thing that
thrive.
yeah. One thing that keeps popping into my mind is we need a really good like war trained doctor. So if someone gets a bullet hole in their butt cheek, they can take it out for you safely without having to go to a hospital. That's what
Hmm.
I'm thinking of right now. Like we need a doctor that can do a lot medically with very little supplies.
Yeah, yeah, most definitely somebody who knows how to, heal wounds and remedies for if you get sick and whatnot. It almost seems like an alternative, just like an alternative civilization almost. So I mean, you'd only be a few people, but you'd
Yeah,
be looking at
holistic
like,
doctors are in high demand, of course, because they
mhm,
know what plants, like, you get like a scrape or a burn, they know what plants to use to soothe it.
mhm,
Like, we're talking going back in time.
right, right, absolutely, absolutely. And it doesn't, like for me, I think for a normal person who feels comfortable living in society where they can go out to eat and they can go all these different places, to them it's a safe, comfortable place. There's nothing motivating them to leave. But, you get your food drugged a few times, you get electronic weapons used on you, you get people making up all sorts of lies on you and stuff, trying to get you in trouble. You're getting stalked and harassed and all that stuff. Then society becomes like a hostile type of place. It's not a comfortable place. It's not a place that you want to live in and hang out, and it becomes a place where you when you look at it, you look at just negativity. Like, man, I gotta go to the store, and I'm tired of being followed around up here. I'm tired of seeing this stuff. I don't want to do it anymore. Like me, I've always tried to make the best out of the situation, but going through gang stalking is not the is not the same life as what you had before it. You don't look at the mall as being some, like, damn, that's cool. I'm about to go to the mall, or I'm about to go over here. I'm about to go over there. You look at it now like, man, I'm gonna go over there, and that same damn store, and they're gonna have people. You know what I mean? You
Yeah, it's
interpret the.
exhausting.
It is. That's what I'm saying. It's exhausting. You interpret your world in a completely different way. And then it's just like, well, if I don't like this and I have an issue with it, then why am I dealing with it? Why participate? Then if we don't have our phones or we don't use the phones that much, how are they going to monitor? You can't monitor somebody's conversation if they're not on a phone. So then you don't have to worry about being mimicked from the conversations you're having. You don't have to worry about any of that stuff. And society is completely dependent upon technology. They need technology. The people doing the gang stalking, they use technology and they distance themselves from people, but they gang stalk them at the same time, and it makes them feel safe. Yada yada yada. Without technology, they can't do anything. Society is at a place now they can't do anything without technology. All the schools are on technology, the government systems are on technology. The corporate world is is definitely filled with technology. These people can't do anything without technology. That's all they know. They
Do you
they
know what the
they
earliest report of gang stalking was? Is it like
the
relatively new? Has it been around for a couple of decades?
well, okay, gang stalking as it's happening to me and you are with the color coding and the brights on the cars and everywhere we go it's happening. Now people have told me I've talked to people going through gang stalking that said it's been happening to them since the early 80s as it's happening now, and I have not talked to that many people who've been experiencing it at that level that we are now back then. But the the Scientologist have a situation with a woman named Paulita Cooper. She was a journalist and she was reporting on Scientology, and they began gang stalking her. And that's like the oldest. That's like no, that's like one of the most famous cases of gang stalking that happened. But it goes back further. There was a movie called Gaslight, or what was it called, Gaslight or Gaslighting or something. It was
Oh, that's
made
like
like
the
back.
1940s.
Yeah, back in the 1940s, people were getting like they made a whole movie about gaslighting and how people used to get gaslighted. So, there's different aspects of gang stalking that we're experiencing now that they were doing to people a long time ago. But gang stalking as it's happening to us right now, the 80s, definitely the 80s. The tech, as everywhere we go, it can follow us, and they have an aerial view of us. And because when I walk into a neighborhood, I know somebody's watching me from the satellites, and they have an aerial view of me, and they're searching through the area to find out what types of people they can bring out to mimic me and do different gang stalking assignments. And so it's so technological now, and so it would have to be the 80s would have to be the time that yeah, the way we're
That's
going through it
really,
now.
that's to where my thought process was going, because I was like, well, okay, if we like knock down our technology, because they're pretty dependent on technology, right? I wonder how
Hmm.
long this has been technically going on for, because there could be, unreported cases like early on, like maybe as early as like the gaslighting came out, maybe to where there might be still some people out there that know how to do a fairly efficient job at it without the crutch that is technology today. But it sounds like
Yeah,
wouldn't be,
yeah.
it's pretty minimal from what I'm
Well,
gathering right now.
well, see, the technology has of course. I think it's probably been going on for thousands of years. Ancient cults probably did it to people. It's probably been going on for a long time. It's closely related to mind control. But I don't. But I think the technology has created consistency to where literally you walk outside and you go walking, everybody within a 10-mile radius is being recruited to do it. And so the consistency at which we're experiencing it, I don't think has ever existed. I mean, the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s, like, but the way it's
Oh,
happening to us
basically
now,
when technology took off.
yeah, that's when technology took off in the 80s. That's when it really took off. And it's the level of consistency. It's not so much that the gaslighting exists or the noise campaigns or street theater. It's not so much that stuff's happening. It's the level of consistency at which it happens. It's 24/7 nonstop with numerous people. Like literally everybody in a 10-mile radius is being recruited through 1-800 numbers, all sorts of technology. All the stores are being recruited. I don't think that could have happened before the 80s.
Okay, good, good. That's
I don't
really,
think not at that rate, not at that consistency. It would have
yeah,
been
I'm surprised at how big this whole thing can get, because I had an experience when I got out of rehab, and I was like, this was a time period where I was sober and I didn't have much. I was still like getting, my like, trying to get, assemble my life back together or whatever. So I didn't have much in the way of materialistic stuff. I didn't have a place to live, but they, I think in a way they wanted to show me how much they can mess with a destination from getting to point A to point B because I didn't have my cell phone. I didn't have a cell phone at this time to like Google Map, the bus route or whatever. So I used like the pamphlets at like, the 7-Eleven or whatever, and also the other buses previous that I took, and mapped out my route. And they would terrorize me to a point where I would get off the bus early or miss my stop or whatever. And when that was failing to work, because I started just paying a little bit more attention, they stopped the bus, said it needed maintenance, got all of us off the bus. Then all of a sudden, all these people are just like happily walking to their destination, and this bus stop that they had us get out at is like in the middle of the route, right? And so that bus takes off after it starts running, and the voices are telling me at this point in time, if you every time you smoke a cigarette, because apparently like stopping smoking is important too. This is when I still thought it was about my sobriety, and at this point in time, I was thinking maybe this is just some weird kind of new fandangled intervention or something. I'm like, oh, they're only gonna track me until I'm sober for a year or two. There's got to be like a mark here or something. So that's when I believe that. So they're telling me anytime I smoked a cigarette that my bus, that'd be one more bus that wouldn't come pick me up. And so I decided to test it because I was pissed off. So I light up a cigarette, and this bus comes by, stops in front of me. The bus driver is basically messing with my head. Oh, this is the last stop. This is the last stop. And it's obviously not the last stop, and they take off. So no shit. Every time I lit up a cigarette, I'd wait like 5 or 10 minutes, get impatient, get pissed off, stressed out, smoke another cigarette, another bus would come by, like in with a minute or two, and like give me some bullshit about how I can't get on this bus. So I'm standing there for like almost near an hour at this bus stop with these buses with no people on it, just a driver messing with me. And then eventually I didn't smoke a cigarette by the time the next bus came, and there are people back on that bus and we're ready to go to our next stop. And that happened 3 times on my way home. And I was busing like for a long ways. I was busing, probably like from Seattle to like a town called Woodinville. So there's like I had to take like 3 buses to get, from one destination to another. But that's how global this is. They literally can make buses show up and not show up.
Right.
And buses full of actors who just get off happily and they don't need to go anywhere else. This was everybody's bus stop except my bus stop, apparently. And that's freaky at the level in which
Yeah.
they can mess with you.
Yeah, I've noticed that the traffic. I've had people comment on my videos about similar situations where like you use the bus stop thing, like they will have bus people go on the buses, extra people, and they give them free bus tickets and stuff just to put on certain color clothing or just to be there to follow you around. Like I can go to a street, an area somewhere in this city or a neighboring city, and I can go on a street corner or be walking on the street hanging out somewhere, and there's like these are areas where there should be like very little pedestrian activity, and all of a sudden like it'll be like a bunch of cars coming and going, and people will be like, man, where are all these cars coming from? And it's because I'm being gang stalked. That there's just numerous people just coming to the area, driving around, and it's not a busy. These aren't busy areas where there should be a lot of people, but now there's a lot of people there because of the gang stalking. And that's one of the freaky things is it's like, why is there so many people? Like, why are these people? What do they want? And they just come there just to do the gang stalking assignments, and then they leave, and it's just weird. Like it's like you're creating more circulation of people in the area just because you're there. And that's one of the biggest things I didn't like about it. It's like I'd be going hanging out, and then extra people would come in the area. I'd be like, why are these people like, what do they want? Why do they keep doing this? And that's another thing about leaving and going like hiking or going camping and getting off the grid is because you don't have to worry about as much circulation. Just extra people just showing up that you don't want there.
Yeah, and I have noticed that a lot with traffic too, since I just recently started paying attention to traffic because I've never in my life paid attention to the color of a car or what kind of car it is. I'm not very good with car names or anything like that. It's just something I really haven't paid attention to much in my life until like I saw like the brightening videos and I started actually paying attention out there. And yeah, the traffic is weirder than I remember it being because if I'm driving a vehicle, um, I'll be like going like down this highway and I know what this this highway, this particular highway, I know what traffic should be like at just about any point during the day. And it's weird to just drive along this, straight road for miles and miles and see like people flood the highway and then get off the highway. Like it'll look like gridlock. And then I get to like the next light and everybody's gone. I was like, how did I not notice all these people peel off the road, It's just really strange. And that actually happened today. I was coming back home and there all of a sudden I'd be stuck in gridlock and then nothing open highway. And then stuck in gridlock again and then nothing open highway. I'm like, well, okay, what the hell is going on here?
Yeah, yeah, definitely, definitely. And have you had people stop and talk to you that were participating in it?
The weirdest thing that I've encountered so far is I was sitting at a bus stop, and it's summertime, so I am not fully clothed by any means. And one of those like women who wear like the drapes and they cover their face till they're married, I don't know what they're called. I'm not very cultural. I'm not really educated culturally. But she's fully clothed with like her robe on and everything. And she comes and just snatches my sunglasses off my head and throws them. And I'm sitting there with my buddy, right? And he's a dude. And I'm like, aren't you gonna like defend my honor? I'm a woman. And my glasses just got stolen. Like, looking, I'm like, did you not just see that? He's like, I didn't see her take them. I'm like, wasn't I wearing sunglasses like 2 seconds ago, dude? Like, she snatched them off my head right in front of him. And then all of a sudden, this other dude who I also know, like, comes along and starts gluing my sunglasses back together. So I'm watching him glue my sunglasses back together, and she proceeds to try to fight me physically. And that's because like a bus rolled just like blew right past us. Like did not stop for us. Like there's like four people at this bus stop and our bus didn't stop. And she told me it was because I'm dressed like a whore and they don't want whores on their bus. And who is at the front desk who checks me into my rehab? That lady who tried to fight me at the bus stop. Like my buddy had to step in between us and basically he's like, I don't want to hit a woman, but he basically like, blocked her so that I could go down to the next bus stop and get on the bus.
Wow, that's
And then
wild.
2 hours later, the dude who was gluing my sunglasses back together comes to my house to drop off my glued together sunglasses. I'm like, weirdos.
Yeah, that's crazy. She tore your sunglasses off and then proceeded to fight you?
Yeah. And then so the bus didn't stop because I was dressed like a whore and they don't want whores on the bus. And I'm like, okay, that
That's
makes sense.
crazy.
Yeah.
That's
And then
crazy. Then
she's
when
the
you
one taking me into rehab. She was behind the desk, and every time like she'd have me sign, like she was fucking, she was being ridiculous. She like I would go sit down, and she's like, "Excuse me, ma'am, come up here one more time to sign this paper." And I'd be like, "Is this the last paper I have to sign?" "Oh yeah." Go to sit down. "Oh ma'am, I need to sign this one last thing." So that proceeded for a while. And then every time like she'd go to hand me the pen, she'd like, pull it back towards herself, like, just kidding. Okay, now you can have it. So we're playing the please pass me the pen game. for a while, you know, just little petty crap like that. And I knew who she was like the second I walked in there, and I almost shit my pants. I was like terrified. I'm like, oh, what is gonna happen to me in this place? Because you know she acted very violently towards me.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
was a little
that's
off
really
topic, but yeah, I've been approached. That's why I'm not very social.
yeah, yeah, I see. Wow, that's crazy. That's really something. Did you end up talking to her again while you were there? Like after
No, she basically just she just like does the front desk paperwork, and I didn't really see her again until I came back for an outpatient appointment, and she was at the desk again, and she you know did the same little stuff, but just to a less degree, I guess.
mm,
Like call me up
okay.
to the desk for like reasons I don't need to be called up for, and just not doing their job as efficiently as she could, you know.
Mhm. That's really wild. That's a really wild story. I've heard similar kinds of stuff, but that's really unique. That you she took the glasses off you, then the guy did the gluing thing, and then you saw him again, and then she was processing you into the center. That's a pretty unique story.
Yeah, and then I'm also going on the bus. I saw one more person from that clinic outside, like in the quote unquote real world, and she was standing like I was waiting for a bus, and you know there's no one at this bus station right now, and I'm like, okay, it's 5 o'clock at night. This bus station should be packed because it's like a transit center, so there's like 5 or 6 buses like go through there or whatever. There's no one there, and then you know this lady comes and stands next to me, and I you know I'm basically not wanting to interact with anyone at this point in time. So yeah, I'm not social like at all. And this lady comes and stands next to me for a minute or two, and then the voices are like, "Don't you recognize her?" Da, 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 da. And then I turn towards her, and all of a sudden the bus station starts filling up. Buses start coming through, and it's the lady who like comes in and checks your vitals in the middle of the night and like shines flashlights on your bed to make sure you're there. That's pretty much the only time I saw her in that clinic. But she was standing right next to me at the bus stop.
Mm. Yeah, that's really wild. What do you think would happen? Okay, I'm getting gang stalked and you're getting gang stalked. What do you think would happen if we were hanging out in the same area? If people, how do you think they would be reacting to the? Do you think the gang stalking would change, or how do you think it would be going?
That's an interesting question. I think they're very intelligent in how you know, to specifically torment each individual differently based on, you know, what they've observed through their observing us before they started harassing us. And I almost think they're smart enough to be like, okay, him and her both have this one thing that they notice, like say like the red shirts or whatever. So they would find techniques to mess with us both at the same time, or with things that have double meanings. Like say white cards to you mean, you know, like you know, the gang stalking slowing down, it's getting toned down a notch. And to me, they mean I'm gonna get trapped somewhere. And so they'll do it at an opportune time to make me feel trapped and you feel, you know, calm in a situation where we can have those feelings or something. I don't know how to explain it, but I think they're smart enough to be able. Now, if there's like a whole group of us, I'm not quite sure how that would work. I think they might just crank it up or something, or try to find
Yeah,
ways to isolate us again, or no, I don't know.
I thought wouldn't that be okay? No, when did we started wearing red and black? And like when if we like when if we just like when if we started wearing red and black and we had sunglasses and like they would start following like we're getting gang stalked and then we start doing like street theater and all this stuff. Like what would like wouldn't that be crazy? Like mimicking them?
Oh yeah, I don't know that. I'm not sure how they would respond to it. I just know like if we get like that creative and that in their face about it, I just know they'll fight back. I don't know how, but it'll probably be in a relatively creative way that we probably can't come up with just me and you sitting here.
Right, right, right. But that's one thing I wish I had done. I wish I had done more. I wish I had tried. I see. I never really. I've done stuff like that a little bit, but I never really tried it. And I'm wondering, like, if I start, like, I think I'm gonna try that a little bit this summer, like mimicking the gang stalking back and seeing what they do. Like, just like we're being fucked with. Whenever you start fucking with them back, like, 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 like you be standing like when a gang stalker, like, say I was in a store and then somebody doing the gang stalking comes into the store wearing red and black, and then you came in walking behind that person after they did that, and like we had like a few people like mimicking it back to them. What would they like? You know what I mean? I know what you're saying. They would come up with different sorts of stuff, but it'd be interesting just to see what the reaction would be.
Yeah, I don't maybe not even at any point in history. I don't think there's been enough TIs in one room to really have they have enough knowledge, especially in these areas, to orchestrate something back to them. But I'm very, very curious as to see what that would do.
Right, right. It'd be interesting. I was hanging out with this one woman, and she came all the way up here from Texas, and like she literally, you got to hear this story. You got to hear this story. She was living in Austin, Texas, and she started getting gang stalked, and the gang stalking was like real bad. Like it was real bad, right? And so
Hmm.
she ended up like leaving her house, and she was walking around and she hadn't gotten her money yet because she was in the military or something. And so some other woman got her a ticket, and then she came up here, and a woman who's a friend of mine who works with me with this gang stalking stuff got her a ticket online, and she came up here, and I was hanging around her for like 2 or 3 days. It was about, I think, like 3 days. And at first she was like acting normal and everything, and then it's like something happened. I think they started fucking with her mind more, like because the energy got real negative. Like I was hanging out with her, like it was at this hotel room. We were just sitting there, like we were just sitting there talking and stuff, right? Like we didn't know each other. We had been talking on the phone, and so it was more of a thing to where like we were recording the interviews and stuff we were doing about gang stalking, and I was asking her like different. I was like teaching her different sort of concepts I had and whatnot. And then it was like the gang stalking just like really started messing with her. It was like even worse or something. And yeah, like I think they were doing. I think she was like a military experiment, honestly, because I could even feel the energy in the room. It felt like they were shooting some sort of energy beam in the room, and it was like a real fucked up feeling. And but at the same time, the gang stalking changed though. It's like it seemed like when I was around somebody else being gang stalked, it was like they didn't really know what to do. It seemed I think it's intimidating when more people come together who are being gang stalked. I think it's intimidating to the people who are orchestrating it. I think they don't. I think that's
Oh
the last
yeah,
thing they want. Yeah, it's
absolutely.
intimidating.
Because if we're this much of a threat solo, they will probably be very, very vicious. Um, if we actually start banding together and coming up with any sort of thing that slows down the progression of whatever they're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, yeah.
Which
It's
we're
more of
not
a
trying to take them down or anything. We're just trying to regain our sanity, pretty much, and our rights.
yeah, yeah. Of course, and it seems like a thing to me. Like if five people were together who would be getting gang stalked, I think that'd be really intimidating. Because when five people, like if the more of us that are together in person, the bigger voice we have. Because it's easy to ignore one person, but if there's like five of us together, like all recording this stuff and saying the same stuff, and that would have a real strong effect. Like if five of us went into a store, or five of us went somewhere, and we're telling people like, no, this is real. This isn't a fucking joke. We're not playing with you. Look, like they people would be like, damn, it'd be far more. It'd be far. What are they gonna say? There's five delusional people all filming the same stuff.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, or are they gonna be like, there's 20 delusional people all together? It wouldn't make any sense. And the disinformation campaigns wouldn't work as much either, because when we're alone by ourselves, the disinformation campaigns and the networking has sort of effect.
Yes.
But if there's like five of us together, the disinformation what are you like? What are you gonna do? Have a disinformation campaign for five people? Like there's five people walking down the street and you have to watch them for this reason, blah 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 blah. And then we're all out there talking to people, hitting people up, showing them what's going on, you know?
Yeah, I didn't even think about it that way. It would make
Yeah.
some aspects definitely more difficult for them. I'm trying to kind of think through my head here and see if there's anything that would make it easier for them, because like what if we're all in one place and they just decide to, like, I don't know, bomb us or something? Well, we're all in one place, instead of like several different bombs. Okay, that's okay. I'm really reaching here, but something along those lines, where it would be easier for them, and I just can't really think of a good one.
We might be able to get some money out of this. Like if five of us got together and we were like, we're being gang stalked and all this stuff, and we were showing people, and we were like, we need some resources to help us. Like we might even be eligible to get some sort of, like, you know what I mean? Like we could really do something with that.
Like, for one, like, get a house.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Like getting,
And then we,
just not
like,
even,
because we'll all feel safer, like, around each other. You know what I mean?
right, right, most assuredly, most assuredly. I go back to the nomadic thing, getting some like camping equipment and stuff. Like get some old camping equipment, you know what I mean? I mean not old like used stuff, but like old school type stuff, and just be out there navigating and stuff like that. And it's just like, cause we all know what's going on. Like I don't gotta spend 20 minutes explaining to you what's happening. You already know what's happening because it's happening to you. And then I know what's happening. It's like if people know what's going on, then that's the way to go. It's like we don't have to explain anything to anybody. It's like
Yeah.
we all know what's happening, and so you know that's the big thing with this gang stalking stuff. It's like if a bunch of us are together, it's not going to go unseen. You know, it's not going. We're gonna have witness testimonies.
Yeah, I really wish I had known about gang stalking when I ran into that one other person who I'm assuming at this point in time was a targeted individual, because I wish I was aware that I was being gang stalked at that time, because like that was a point in time. Yeah, I was being surveillanced, but I wasn't really aware of the gang stalking. Like a couple of weird things, like my phones were hacked, and I felt like I was being watched sometimes, but I hadn't started hearing the voices or anything at that point in time. And I really wish, like, I really wish I would have known about it, so I could have paid attention to how, like, his gang stalking differs from mine, because I only really remember the similarities, but I'm not really remembering the differences.
Hey, we would be like the Matrix. Like you know how Neo and all those people in the Matrix were like getting people out of the Matrix and stuff. Like
Um,
it'd be like straight up like the Matrix.
yeah, for
Like
sure.
like people would be like, I'm being followed. I don't know what to do. It'd be like taking the pill, the red pill, and
Exactly.
then like breaking them out of the Matrix.
Yeah, I think about that movie a lot when this goes on.
Right.
That and the Truman
Right.
Show, man. Just like ever since I saw that movie, I felt like I've been in it. Like I feel like Truman in that show.
Right, right. That's exactly what it's like. That's exactly what it's like. Like his wife was all like, what was his wife saying to him? She was all like, "Do you want?" She was like trying to tell him, "Does he want something to eat or something?" Or what was
Yeah, and
she
she's like,
saying?
"You want a stuffed dicer? It slices. It, I don't know, juliennes. It does this. It does that." And he's like she's basically doing a commercial for the show, and she has to do it because it's 100% live. So she has to do these live commercials, and I'm sure they're at certain points during the like a certain time of day or whatever. And he's just like shaking her, like, "Who are you talking to? I'm right here. What does that have to do with it? Anything I'm trying to tell you." Because he was trying to say, like, we need to move to Fiji or something like that. And she's like, "Oh, we can't do that. We don't have the finances. Don't you want to have a baby?" Da, da, da. And then she just starts talking about, like, some, like, new lawnmower or something.
Like a blender or something, right?
Yeah. And he's like, "What the hell does that have to do with what I'm talking about?"
Right, right,
He's like, "Well, what is wrong?"
right.
And everyone like is trying to deter him from basically leaving that bubble that they created for him, because
Yeah,
they use like psychological tactics when he was a kid, making him afraid of water. And this place is like an island, so he has this irrational fear of water and like flying and all these types of things that were put into him as a child and what he learned in school at that bullshit school.
yeah, yeah. No, that's what it seems like. It's like who, like. I remember I've been talking to people, and I'd be telling them what I'm talking about, and like after I got done saying what I was saying, they'd be like, "You want a piece of chicken?" And like I'm sitting up there talking about how I've been covertly drugged and electronical weapons and cars speeding at me like they're gonna hit me and kill me and all this stuff while I'm walking down the street, and again they're like, "You want a piece of chicken?" Like what the
It's like,
like
no,
what
did you not hear what I just said? No, I don't want
right,
a fucking piece of chicken. I'm being terrorized.
right. Like this is a fucking crisis. And
Oh, I'm sorry,
you
that's
know?
hilarious.
Yeah, it's really crazy. It's really tripped out. Do you think the people just don't get it, or do you think they're just like? I think the people are so because we're, we're in an era of time where the people are messed up. See, the people are messed up anyway.
Yeah, we all are.
Right. I mean, the people like, out walking around and all this stuff. I mean, their mind's already on cloud nine to begin with, and then we're sitting up here getting all this stuff happening to us. And these people are like worrying about buying blenders and stuff, like the Truman Show, you know.
Yeah,
And
that's what's on their mind. It's all like materialistic, entertainment stuff. Like I remember. See, I think maybe I'm catching on to why I'm targeted because, um, I remember like talking with my ex, and I was like, what was it? Oh, I was going off about how the music awards and the entertainment awards are all bullshit, and I don't understand why everyone gets together to watch this. This is just like so ridiculously dull and boring and da da da. And like I was just going off about like how like this is just bullshit, and I wasn't understanding why we were getting together to do this. Like we had people over to watch these awards. I'm like, what the fuck did these people do for us? And
right,
he's like, they entertain us, you dumb nut or whatever. And I was like, really? So they need to be making like billions and billions of dollars a year to fucking entertain our
right,
stupid asses? Like I was not, and I was like I felt like I was talking, like I feel like I was talking to a retard or something. But our views were just so different. He's like, well, it makes sense to me. They get paid a lot of money because they entertain us. And I was like, no, they make us more stupid.
right, right. They're making people like Like I remember, have you seen the churches? Like they actually like sit in church now. They don't even do anything. They just watch movies all day.
Right?
Have
And
you
like
been?
half
Have
of
you
it
been?
is just listening to songs. Like this, the couple of people that did like talk me into going to their church for a day here, a day there. I'm like, where's the fucking choir? Where's the handbells? No, they got none of that anymore.
Right, right. There's a what is this like? There's a church right across the street. I used to do research on the '60s, and I was doing some research on the Manson guy, and he was living at Spawn Ranch out in Chatsworth, California. It's like on the outside of LA. It's in San Fernando Valley, and across the street from the ranch now is a church. And back in '69, it was like it was like desolate area. You know, the highway to get there is the Saint Susanna Pass. And so now there's like telephone wires everywhere, and it's all corporatized, and like there's a church right across the street from where I used to be and all this stuff. And I went to the church, and like they were having a punk rock show at the church or something. Like there was like people with paint all over their faces, and they were dressed up like punk rockers and all this stuff. And the people look really strange that were there. They look crazy, and they're all like they're getting ready to have a punk show and stuff that night. And I was just like, man, what's happened? Like these churches aren't even churches anymore. And I didn't even see a Bible. And they were talking about how they were going to have a church service and watch some movies after. They were going to have a punk show and then watch some movies afterwards. And I was just like, it was just like there's nothing wrong with people having fun. And I'm not even religious. I'm not religious. I'm not Muslim, Christian, Jewish, or Buddhist or Science. I'm not none of it. But there's nothing. I don't think there's anything wrong with people having fun at church. But at the same time, it's like what's going on?
Yeah, you don't
You
feel like
know?
you're actually in church.
No, it doesn't. And the people don't know anything at the churches now. They don't know anything.
They really don't.
They don't. The pastors don't know anything. The reverends don't know they don't know anything, and the congregation really doesn't know anything, and they don't even believe in anything. They just go there
Yeah,
because they think they're supposed to.
whenever I went to a sober house, oh, don't even get me started on that one. But I went to a sober house after I got out of rehab, and it was mandatory to go to church. So I had to go to church like on Wednesdays and Sundays or something like that. And I was explaining to the cult people. This was the funny part. This like group of Mormons would come like knock on the door, and I'd go outside like smoke it. I'd talk to them for the length of a cigarette, and then I'd just like politely tell them to go away, and I'd go back inside or whatever. And so they would come to me, and I was complaining to them about my church, and he's like, "What's wrong with your church?" And I'm like, "Well, this preacher is preaching away and I'm not understanding a thing he's talking about." And then the one thing that I do understand, he's just beating into us why tithing is so important. Like why giving 10% of our paychecks to the church is so important. It's like every other sermon is about giving him money.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, this is not church. And the
No,
cult
it's
people are like,
not.
yeah, we don't do that at our church. Come join us, of course.
Right, right. Yeah, it's not. It still is what it is, and a lot of the gang stalking is coming from the churches. They're teaching their congregation on how to gang stalk people, and they're actually having them do it. I mean, they're cult members anyway, pretty much, but they're having them
Yeah,
gang
Phelps
stalk
wasn't
people.
right about this church either.
Yeah, the people are sitting in church, claiming to be people, claiming to represent God, and they're in the church teaching people to stalk people, and they're lying and all sorts of stuff. It's a house of it's a house of evil is what it is. It's the same thing when you go back and you read the New Testament and you talk about the corruption in the church. I mean, that's all Jesus talked about was the corruption and the synagogues and stuff. and it's the same thing now. They're so damn corrupt that it's a house of the devil is what it is.
Yeah, like it's like I'm like almost like I still haven't like brought my kid to any church. Well, one, like we were talking about on one of our previous interviews, is how kids are more like psychic and spiritual and open minded, and how society just kind of beats that out of them. Um,
Mhm.
I've asked my kid repeatedly, "Hey, you want to come to church with me? You want to come to church with me?" And he's pretty damn adamant about not going to church. And he's said yes, like to other people, saying, "Hey, you want to come to church with me today?" Sure. Like, a friend of mine, offered to bring him to her church a few times because I don't go regularly. I was like, yeah, and he wanted to go, so I let him go. But he's just so adamant. Whenever I ask him to go, he won't do it, which is probably a good thing because I don't want to bring my kid to a church which is really a cult. And it's so hard to differentiate that these days, especially since I know very, very little about the Bible to begin with. So I don't know if what they're spitting out actually makes, biblical sense or not. So I'm like very, very wary because I don't want to join something that's really something else.
Yeah, yeah. I don't blame you either because they do. There are people out there in these churches pretending to be people of God, and they're really agents. They're really just nothing but degenerates, and they're looking to lure people in to traps and stuff like that, and get money out of people, indoctrinate people into cult behavior and cult activity, and I mean, you see it going on. You see it going on, and the best thing to do is not even go. I mean, I wouldn't. I used to go to churches just for research and to study and stuff, and I seen the cult behavior in there. I remember one time there was this pastor there, and there was like a group of younger kids, and he was sitting there yelling at the kids, and he was like, "This is what God wants you to do, and if you're not doing what God wants you to do, blah blah blah." And he was like yelling at them, and they didn't respect him. They were just
That
being
sounds like
they
a
were
Baptist.
yeah, they were just intimidated. And I'm looking at it like, how the hell is this mentally deranged moron reject speaking for God and are speaking for
Oh,
anything spiritual? I'm like, who the hell? Like, who the hell? And I realized what was happening. The people who own the church picked a deranged, moronic freak to sit there and yell, to intimidate people, to think, to make people so afraid to question anything. He the way he was yelling at them, they weren't going to think for themselves and question anything. They were going to sit there and be intimidated and be afraid and be stuck in it's like a hostage situation. And I'm like, wow, man, you
yeah.
you gotta.
I've been to one of those places where the same like moronic dude is yelling the entire sermon, and what he was saying was like, this is the one I remember this from my childhood because it sticks out to me. Like my parents dragged me to it or something, and like we just tried a new church for a minute and then we didn't like it because he yells all the time, so we went back to the other one. But anyway, like he was basically saying in his sermon was about what wifely duties are to their man after they marry him. And he said that you are against God to not put out to your husband just whenever he wants it. He's like screaming, "It's having a headache is not an excuse." And I'm like, ooh, someone's not getting any. But yeah,
What?
he's
Are
basically
you being
saying it's
for
okay
real?
to be raped. And I'm like, Mom. So I'm like talking to my mom about this on the way home. I'm like, that's not okay. I'm like, why would he say that? Da, 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 da. And she's like, if you really love your husband, you do it. I'm like, oh my God, she's one of them. And I'm like 9 at this time. Like I know what he was saying wasn't right, but because like he's in a position of power, my mom thinks that's right now.
That man, that is crazy. That's funny. He was like sitting there like yelling. You see the craziest things in these churches. I mean, the you know, I it leaves me speechless, really. And the people in there are moronic. They don't know it. When
Yeah,
I
they're
say
just
they don't,
nodding along like, oh, okay, yeah, that sounds right. You know.
because yeah, this guy was sitting in there telling me that there's no astrology. He was saying astrology and all that stuff, and he was like, astrology, blah blah. Blah. And I was just like, the Bible's full of astrology, and I was like, yeah, in the book of Job, it speaks of Mazzaroth, which is the Hebrew word for the astrological wheel, and
Yep.
you know, and I'm sitting there talking to him, and I said, he didn't even. We were talking about Genesis, and I remember asking him. I was talking to him about the Nephilim, like the sons of God, the giants, all that stuff, and he didn't even know anything about the subject matter. These people are just idiots. And they don't know they don't know anything about the Bible. They have not read the Bible. They haven't studied the Bible. They don't know the Hebrew definitions for the words and terms. They're nothing but morons, and they're allowed to sit there in the pulpit and scream all day and ask for money. And I wouldn't give them 2 cents. Got idiot don't even sitting there with a book. You don't even read the damn book, and you think you're gonna speak for the book? Get out of here. You know?
Yeah, it's like what, because we read along sometimes to like what they're saying. So they'll read like a Bible verse, and then their interpretation of it is not what it says on the page. I'm like, where did they get that from this? Like, I just read
Yeah,
it too. Like, you're giving us the cheat sheet here. Like, if there was no Bible and it was just passed down by word, we wouldn't have the evidence right in front of us saying that contradicts what this dude is saying. And we believe it because this dude just says it. And then the church next door, or the church like a couple blocks down, reading the same verse, he's saying it means something completely different.
right, yeah. They're saying, like, and they'll be saying, they'll be sitting there saying something, and what they're saying is not there. I'm like, that's not what the translation really is, and that's not what it's saying. And they'll like read something and put their own interpretation on it, and then preach their interpretation, and the congregation isn't reading or studying properly. And they're just sitting there. It's almost it's almost like it's a mockery of the Bible. And I'm not religious. I'm not speaking for the Christian religion. I'm not religious. I don't care what they do, but I know what they're doing is not really according to what they're preaching isn't in the Bible. It's not. They're just they're like it's like propaganda speakers or something. They're just putting out a show for their church, and it's crazy.
Yeah, I believe my mom is a Jehovah's Witness on the surface that secretly follows Buddha.
Really?
Because, like, she's been to so many churches in her life, and I think, like, she secretly studies Buddha, like, behind her Jehovah Witness's husband's back. Because, well, okay, but I don't want to say it on the air, but I just have proof that she, is following Buddha. And that just seems strange to me that you have to, like, put on a front for what your actual religious, preferences, I guess.
Yeah. Like, so she's just showing up for ceremony. Like, she thinks that's what's expected of her, so she's just showing up.
Yeah, for like Jehovah's Witness, and like for a minute there, pretty much following it to a T. I was like, Mom, it's my birthday. She's like, we don't celebrate birthdays anymore. I'm like, well, that's
What
news to me, Mom.
you know what I don't get is, like, with this religious stuff, like, why, like the Christian religion and Islam and Judaism and all that stuff. these are religions that come from those are the three Semitic religions. They come from the Middle East, right? They're basically
Mhm.
desert religions. You're talking about people from the desert, that's their desert religion in the Middle East and all that stuff. And I look at it like, what do I have to do with it? Why would I want to be a part of a desert religion? What do the people what does that have to do with me? I'm not Jesus was Jewish, I'm not Jewish. All the Muslims, I'm not Arab, I'm not Middle Eastern. Why would I want to be a part of a desert religion?
Right.
I got my right. I look at it. That's an interesting concept because you've had people coming from different. You like the American Indians go back thousands of years. You got tribes and you got the people of Europe where the Druids and people, Viking people, they had their own gods and all their stuff, and the people in Africa have their own stuff. The people in China have their own stuff. Why does everybody want to belong to these desert religions?
I
Like
have
what?
no idea.
I know these people, like the churches have gone around the world burning people alive, cutting people. That's the only reason these religions are so famous. The only reason why Christianity is all over the world is because they burned everybody alive at the stake who wouldn't join it. They're like gangs. They
They
would cut off
are.
people's, yeah, they would cut people's fingers off and chop their heads off and burn them alive on stakes and terrorize people all over the world just to convert them. That's the only reason why people are still a
Oh,
part
I
of
was
it.
gonna ask your opinion on this. Speaking of which, this ties in beautifully to like a question I had. Um, have you seen the videos? Like, I couldn't even watch them because like I don't think there's any basis to them. But I could be completely wrong, which is why I'm asking you this question. I was watching them and they're saying like they're pointing out they're about gang stalking too, but they're like biblical gang stalking, saying targeted individuals are actually like the Lord's appointed new apostles, like trying to give it like a positive meaning, like Jesus was tortured, Jesus was a TI, Joseph was a TI, Job was a TI, and yeah, they were like murdered or whatever for this, that, the other reason, and it's just the Bible repeating itself over and over again. What's your take on that? I don't. Yeah, have you seen those videos?
I haven't seen them, but the philosophy of it to me it sounds very accurate. Jesus was stalked and harassed and murdered in the end at the end of it, just for exposing the corruption. And at the time, and people are being the same things happening to people today for exposing corruption. The world is just as corrupt now as it was then. I mean, in many ways. So,
Yeah, you should take
I
a
think.
look at those. Like if you just go to on YouTube and just put in the search box gang stalking, there's your video and then there's your videos and then a couple of the other ones in that one video that I'm so sorry, I'm bad with names. The lady that was at the interview with us previously tonight, what she was talking about with that the CIA guy coming out and talking about how he, was a perp for a while and stuff like that. That shows up. And then underneath that,
Mhm.
there's all the Jesus stuff about gang stalking.
Yeah, yeah. I have a high respect for the scriptures and stuff. I'm not religious, but I've read religious documents from all over the world. And I'm into like the shamanism, South American Indian shamanism, American Indian shamanism, Hinduism, and all this different stuff. Bon Buddhism, the Tibet monk Buddhism and stuff. All of it fascinates me greatly. But and I'm not religious, but I got a high respect for it, for the people who are really with it. The people who are truly Christian, and I think Christianity is misinterpreted too, because according to the scripture, like the Christians were fed to lions and stuff, like what you're saying. They were targeted. They were fed to lions. They never had a place to live. They were nomadic. They traveled a lot. I think the real Christians were the ones who were alive at the time with Jesus. around that same era. Like after that, it's become like, it's just been manipulated and used. The scriptures have been manipulated and used, for people to do different sorts of stuff. But it makes sense though that the people who are targeted by gang stalking now can, an apostle is somebody who's called out, so that makes sense. A disciple is somebody who disciplines themselves in something. Like Jesus' disciples were disciplined in what they were doing, so they were disciples. Um, they were not apostles. An apostle is somebody who is chosen. A disciple is somebody who says, "I'll do it," and they go to the person, or they hear the person. This apostle is somebody like Apostle Paul. Paul didn't know anything about. Paul didn't even like Christians. Saul, and then he became Paul. He didn't even like Christians. He was but he was called out. He became an apostle because he was chosen. He was called out. So the way you're saying that, as these people are identifying themselves as being apostles, as they're being called out, and that is accurate. They are being called out through what's happening to them.
Yeah,
So it makes a lot
I
of
think their
sense.
theory, if I'm understanding it correctly, is that we're chosen by God to go through this torture to expose this, that, or the other thing. Not quite sure what it is yet. I actually didn't make it that far in the video as to figure out what the point of it all is, because I was just like, I don't know about this, because I have very little knowledge about religion, one, and two, the people that have made these videos, like, I'm very, very sensitive to people's voices, and I couldn't handle their voice. Like, I don't know why, it just annoyed me for some reason, so I couldn't really, like, sit through it, and it was not very interesting to me, so I didn't make it through it, but I think I got the general gist of it. But I guess, like, they're trying to find, they're trying to make sense of what's going on as far as, like, gang stalking is, too. And they're using the Bible to help them figure it out, and they are seeing the same patterns, like, repeating over and over again, and they're seeing um just like a repeat of the past, and they say it's going to end this way based on the Bible.
Yeah, yeah. I support it. If it's helping people get through rough times and it's giving them insight and spiritual protection, spiritual energy to do the things they need to do, then I stand by it. Anything that's going to help somebody get through what they got to get through. Like me, I'm coming from sort of like, as an alternative researcher, I did a lot of theological research mainly because of the mentors that I had, and who guided me and gave me insight. A lot of them, there's been a few of them who were deeply into theology, but the take I've had on it, I developed my own personal views and stuff. But I went through studying like the New Age type stuff, like people who were channelers, fourth density, fifth density, Earth, and extraterrestrials and angels and demons, and like I've been through a lot of different research on what is happening, what humans are, how the universe really works. And I look at it, this is how I honestly look at it. I look at it like within creation you have concepts. Like Christianity is a concept within creation. Islam is a concept. Judaism is a concept. Voodoo is a concept. Scientology is a concept. These are all concepts within creation, and creation is not subjected to them because they've come out of creation. These are things that men have put together. Men have sat down and come up with these concepts in these books and whatnot. So I don't see one religion or one book being able to define the whole cosmos. How can a Bible define? You look up into space at night and you see all these different planets and stars. We have different galaxies, and now we're talking about parallel universes and stuff like that. One book is not going to be able to define all that, or even one religion is not going to be able. Whatever God is, or whatever this whole thing is like, maybe God's not even the right word for some people. It's just a word I use because I'm familiar with it so much. But whatever all this is, we're not going to be able to grasp it. It's going to be too much. A human being, all the minds on the earth would not be able to grasp what this is, what this matrix is. It's too much. We're on one little planet on the outskirts of the Milky Way, and I mean, we don't have the slightest. We're individuals. We have the slightest clue what's going on. What this whole matrix thing is about, all these universes and planet stuff. So I say God, but it's all that there is. And I know it's a powerful force, not to be reckoned. I know if you get wrong with it, it'll come after you. If you defile the laws of nature, and if you violate natural law, it'll come after you. And,
oh yeah.
Right, and that's what these people have done. They've violated my God, and they've done some horrible stuff, and they've disrespected natural flow and natural law. What they've done is they've disrespected that, and they're subjected to natural law, and all their computers and all their science. That's not going to do them any good.
Right.
That's not going to help them. Their minds can't even fathom what the matrix is. They don't have the mental capacity for it. They it's just not. They just don't have that. And so, their minds cannot understand what this matrix is about. And they're going to learn it though. They're going to learn about it. And Adolf Hitler had to learn about it. Look at the price he paid learning about it. He told everybody he told everybody under him they could do what they wanted to do, and there would be no consequences, and he had all the answers and everything like that. He got wrong. Look what the Matrix did to him, and look, destroyed the whole continent, got blown up. You get wrong, you get wrong, and people have gotten really wrong.
That's what they call like the karmic boomerang.
Yep. And Jesus said it. You reap what you sow. You reap what you sow. You read what you sell. You want to
You really
you want to
do.
be
Whatever
wrong.
you put out there, you get back.
You want to get wrong. Well, the matrix can get wrong back.
And that goes back to like talking about leadership skills too. Like respect goes way further than fear, intimidation.
Right. They gotta respect the matrix. And we gotta remember, these religions, these are men. When you go into churches, this isn't my God's not appointing these people. Men are appointing these people. Men are appointing pastors and reverends and all these. These are men. My God didn't appoint these people to anything. And
Well, yeah,
these
you
are
can
men
just go
doing it.
online and become a priest. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like there's no real good way to go about, like the way we select our leaders. Don't even get me started on that one. There's no rhyme or reason to it.
Mhm. Absolutely. And you can do all that, and and then we got to remember there's a lot we don't know. Like Socrates says, a wise man knows how much he doesn't know. And so I never try to pretend to have insight that I don't have. I know there's a lot I don't know. But even a baby even a baby knows what's going on. You put your hand on fire, you get burnt.
Yeah, what's that called? Like classic conditioning or something like that. It's like, okay, that burned me. I'm not gonna do that again.
Right. And that's the problem, is a lot of people people don't know what it is until they get burnt by something. There's a lot of people out there who they don't know, they know what they're doing is wrong, or they know what they're doing is not acceptable. And so they try to hide it, and they don't want people to know about it, because if they felt right and justified, then they wouldn't care what anybody thought. They'd be doing it wide open.
Well,
But
they're the type of people too that like they put their hand on the stove once they get burned. They not only don't learn their lesson from it, they do it again and again and again.
right.
Oh, I'm gonna
Yeah,
put
there
my
are
hand back
people
on the
like that.
stove. Maybe it'll be different today.
Right. Yeah. That's the definition of insanity too, to repeat the same action, getting the same result.
Yep.
Not wanting the result. And but then people, a lot of people, when you haven't been injured by something, it doesn't really mean much. For most people, once they get injured by something, then they realize how serious it is. And that's what I see going on with this gang stalking. Is people are being stalked, and it's a horrible thing. And but the people who are doing it to them, they've never been injured by it. They haven't been damaged by it. Once people begin to get damaged by it, then they're going to realize how serious it is. Once you get injured and once you get damaged, then it means something. Then it then it gets serious. But because people aren't being damaged, they don't know how serious it is. Just like Adolf Hitler, just like the Nazis. They thought it was a big game. You can go around burning little children alive and cutting out little girls' eyes and stuff, and trying to make them change colors, and making lampshades out of people's skin, and running around putting people in gas chambers and stuff, and lying to people and telling everybody that these people deserve it. No, they thought it was a big game, that they had the right to do that. They hadn't been damaged by it. But then when the Soviet Union came in there and raped all their women, and beat and came in there raping all their women, and shooting up all their old people and stuff, and burning down their houses, and blowing their towns and buildings to smithereens, and taking all their prisoners of war back to the gulag, then they began to realize how serious it really was. Then they said, what have we gotten ourselves into? And now there's a East and West Berlin, and now we're under communism, and we can't leave, and we can't go. Yeah, look what you did. You sat there all those years and watched those people get hurt, and you didn't do anything about it, and you disrespected my God, and you did all this. Now you're in trouble. You're never going to come out of this, and you did it to yourself. You had to learn the hard way. Thought you could play God. Now look at you. That's what's coming for people. You injure people, and you damage people, and harm people, and think it's okay, and you think it's cool. There's nothing cool about that. You can't go around playing with the universe. Play with the universe. That's exactly what they did. They're out there playing with the universe.
Yeah. That kind of leads me in the direction of, like, if we can go out there and get, like, off the grid or whatever, I'm a little worried about how to deal with, double agents coming in, because I know there's even people, like, on, like, the YouTube channels and everything that just pose as TIs to give out, false information, in their benefit or whatever, to benefit, the perps, and just make it more, like, confusing for us. But when those people start getting, like, into a, like, new society or whatever, like, how are we going to deal with that? Because, like, I kind of picture, a pretty non-violent group of people.
Mm. Well, I think I think the thing we got to focus on, Rachel, is not so much getting the word out about the move, the progression, because this it's not really leaving society, it's a progression of society, because no matter where we still go, we're still a society anyway.
That's true.
So if there's a few of us together, there's still a society, nobody left society. We relocated society, and we're changing a society. We're changing our society by reload. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And it's actually a progression, if anything. And but I think that the numbers cannot be too. The numbers can't be large because you get like I think like 5 people, 10 people. 10 people would be more than enough.
You think so?
Anything above, I think so. Anything above that, you're going to have discrepancies. You're going to have problems. We're still humans. We're still animals and stuff. And there will be attempts to infiltrate and destroy and everything like that. And that's one of the biggest reasons why we don't want the technology around. You know, um, and so,
Oh,
but
okay. That's I had a misconception there. I thought you were talking about, like thousands and thousands, like all TIs around the world. I didn't know you were talking about like a relatively small group of people.
I mean, that that would that I don't know. I think that it'd be a cool idea for other people to start like it'd be a cool idea to like get an account of it, and maybe we can share the effects of it and tell people what's going on and how we did it and what it looks like and all this different stuff. And then if it's very successful, then people can start their own independent group, you know,
Yeah,
be their own
I
leaders.
just had that thought.
Right. And then another group, it'd be like 100 monkey effect, where people would be their own leaders. And because I don't think group think and people following leaders always ends to disaster.
Right.
And so, if like a small group of us, like me, you, and a few other people, we made like some sort of success out of it, which we would, of course, we will do that. But another group of people, let's say, they want to so to speak, mimic that success, then they can do it. Are you still there?